Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage, where we take a look at games, preview and review the ones that we can, which we'll do Liza P pretty soon, talk about the gaming news in the industry, and of course stream for fun. Today we're doing a SOG, or a State of Gaming, and we're going to be looking at kind of the mechanical cogs, or the mechanical workings of live service. And I think it's important to talk about live service because this isn't something that's going away. It's only gotten worse. We've had further decrease in content, more monetization, more microtransactions. I'd even call nanotransactions. And we're getting to a point where things are getting pretty frustrating. So if you're enjoying the channel and content, go ahead and give me a follow over at Twitch at Don't Tread on Thee if you'd like, but especially over on YouTube at Gaming Garbage 22. And so yeah, this one, the cogs of live service. We're going to be talking about what Bungie did, and they usually have a game developer conference once a year, or at least they're a part of it, and they usually talk or have something to say about their gaming industry and how they develop games, and they kind of focus on a topic. Well, last year, they decided to talk about live service. And this was just released, this information. So this was finally made public, and so the conference happened around just after the launch of Witch Queen for Destiny 2, which was very, very popular. People liked it. Good content, good story, things really kind of tied into stuff, and also went back to some of the previous experiences and missions that people had too in earlier Destiny iterations. And yeah, they were like, we want to talk about live service because we want to talk about kind of the mechanical cogs that we have, and then kind of how important the linkage and flow of DLC or seasons is to keep that live service going. And if you mess it up, it can be truly detrimental, and that's honestly what we've been seeing with a few. So yeah, again, this happened in 2022 right after Witch Queen. And the first slide they wanted to talk about to the rest of the audience was trust, retention, and revenue. And these are the three main cogs that we have in service and honestly have in any type of industry or business. And so trust is to create quality content for a value price. Basically, the price tag is worth the content or the service or the product that you're paying for. And in the gaming space, this creates the foundation for the player base, which is great. Like, of course, companies want that. Retention is to create content in the future that keeps players engaged and coming back. And so this is where live service really kind of takes on a whole life of its own compared to maybe other games that aren't live service, like the older Halos, or maybe like Cult of the Lamb, or Legend of Zelda, Ratchet and Clank, those kind of games, where they tell more of a story and develop characters instead of producing digital content for live service. The future DLCs and future seasons and battle passes become very important for retention, and they've kind of been honing their craft, not just Bungie, even though they've done it very well, and they've kept players engaged for basically 8 or 9 years until lately, and they've been doing a very, very good job. And then the last one is revenue. So once you have trust and retention, you can then focus on money. And this isn't just about, a consistent service or amount of money. This is actually what we've seen is increasing the revenue, increasing the cost to the consumer. And this can get quite expensive after a while, as we've already seen. Destiny players have already spent hundreds or thousands of dollars by now. We also know that Diablo Immortal people have spent tens of thousands of dollars for their character to be able to get pieces of armor and upgrade them to levels 5 and all of that kind of stuff. And we've also seen this even with just Counter-Strike Go, where people have spent $400,000 plus on skins for their gun, which is crazy. And we also know that there was the whole NFT space and the craze in 21 and 22. And I mean, that was just such a mess. And so the revenue itself, this is normal for every business, right? They create a service or a product, and then you pay them for it, right? And as long as things are fair and quality and worth the price tag, maybe you'd rather have something higher quality, so you're going to pay more, or maybe lower quality because things are cheaper that way. But everything's kind of out in the open. Movies do this, games do this, services, auto mechanics, retail. I mean, everybody follows this kind of general model of trust, retention, and revenue. It all maybe looks a little different, but generally the principles are the same. And so if you can create the quality, you gain the trust. And then this, if you continue to do quality for your product or service, then you keep the retention. And if your people are retained or you even grow, then you can create, honestly, a really good revenue stream from your consumer base. And so this has been the general 3 stages for live service. The next thing that they talk about is beware of over delivery, and you create patterns as a developer. And this is where it really kind of got interesting for me, because this is kind of really digging into the bulk and explains a lot of things on why we see live service as it is, where really there's really nothing different or kind of risky unless it's a whole brand new game, like in Bungie's case, Marathon. And we'll have to see how that goes now that they're owned by Sony. And so, with over delivery, you have to understand the developers, they create patterns and they want to keep the trust and keep providing the content for retention. And then if they maintain retention, of course, they keep that revenue stream. And they do this by good DLC, by connecting DLC story, and, meeting expectations. And yeah, if you keep your players, you keep your revenue. And so we saw this with Destiny, where they're like, okay, we're going to link all of these stories together. We're going to do all of this stuff. We're going to have kind of a regular rollout of DLC. We've seen this too from Call of Duty. We've seen it from World at War, StarCraft, EVE Online. Can't say Star Citizen because they don't really release content. But generally speaking, we've seen this pretty much in live service, and the one to really kick off kind of the Battle Pass model was Fortnite. And that was extremely successful. And they learned from PUBG, and honestly, I think PUBG pretty much learned from Team Fortress 2, which is a very, very old game. But, Team Fortress 2 was able to make it to where it was 5v5 on maps, and you had different types of classes that had pros and cons with each, and everything kind of stayed pretty well balanced for the most part. But then, they could literally make the game for free because people were willing to buy hats. And this is where we started to really see the micro transactions be introduced into the gaming space. And then once this was successful, other companies are like, hey, that would be pretty good. That'd be pretty cheap. Let's do that. Let's see if we can create that. So now we see this too in, Call of Duty, and it's almost all what we see anymore. But we know that really we're kind of being screwed because we know that the DLC really isn't that good in most cases. Because let's be honest, what we see now is a point to where we don't really get story. We don't really get good character development. We barely even get story at all in some games, like Battlefield 2042 or like Black Ops 4, where we didn't even get campaigns. Or like with Overwatch 2, where they really screwed the pooch on that one by just saying, oh, well, we can't really do any of that stuff because it's too difficult or it's too hard. And so we're just going to totally scrap the PvE side of things. And that really sucked. That was horrible. And so, yeah, if you're able to get your DLC to be pretty good, just like Witch Queen was, but then you have a transition to Lightfall, which was the next one, you can kind of really, set up your player base to not really have a good time. And it can be extremely frustrating. And if those expectations aren't met, then they don't feel like they're getting the quality that they need. And this is how Lightfall felt. When it came out, it didn't really jive with the theme. There really wasn't as much to do. It felt like filler content. Even some of the missions were just at a point where it's like, okay, we're just training you to use your new special ability instead of actually incorporating it into a story. They just kept it very generic and basic and simple. And simple can work, but when it feels like filler content, when they feel like they're just adding something, this really kind of becomes a problem. And they do this because they really want to create a consistent flow of content. And they've understood, and they've figured out too in the industry, that as long as the flow is steady, the retention actually stays pretty high for a longer period of time. And so this is where it gets really interesting, because once you have the trust and you have the retention, you want the flow to keep going. And we saw that Halo Infinite really struggled with this with Season 2, where they had a season for 10 months. Their launch was bad. They were fixing a lot of bugs. Their bugs were making more bugs on top of it. And there was just a lot of issues and problems there. And so, yeah, their retention fell off. And people also lost trust in the product. And so they started playing other games. Halo Infinite got pretty cheap pretty fast because Black Friday came around and it was literally like 30% off, which is pretty insane. That's a pretty quick drop off. And it was that Black Friday. It wasn't the next Black Friday the next year. It was literally months later. It was 30% off. And I picked it up for cheap. I still probably paid too much for it. You know, $40 was still expensive. But I mean, that's how cheap it got. And we have games that get so cheap anymore where it's like they would rather keep flowing consistent content instead of actually producing content. And this is the problem with live service, is they know that if they have kind of stuttery seasons or there's issues for too long or there's delays or whatever, it destroys the game. It kills the trust for the community, and they're not going to keep that retention, and they're going to lose their money flow. And we've also seen so many failures in the last couple of years since 22. A lot of live services have died, had their servers shut down, content was canceled, the studio was disintegrated, even with just some normal story games. And again, if there's not enough revenue, you can really hurt the company long term. And we see this too with Square Enix, or we've seen this too with other companies like Activision Blizzard, which is now being bought by Microsoft. And it's just, we see this on a consistent basis, that live service is killing some of these companies. And it's almost like they don't understand why. Because, yeah, let's break this down a little bit. So, again, Witch Queen was wonderful. It had good story, it had good development. But then Lightfall was horrible, but they were still trying to keep to their timeline. And so what we can kind of glean from live service, and not just Bungie, but also from those that have made, Ubisoft titles, like, I think Division is one of them. Man, I'm racking my brain. It's getting late, folks. But yeah, we have ones like Division, where that's a live service platform, and almost everything is pretty much live service anymore. I mean, NBA 2K24 even now has like a season pass or like a battle pass, which is ridiculous, which is an additional cost of $10 on top of everything else they've already monetized, on top of paying for the game. And it's just crazy to me. They've done this with Madden, they've done this with a lot of modern, like, kind of like racing games too. They even did this with the latest Lego game, 2K Drive, and it's just like, what are you people doing? Like, quit this, seriously. And I think it works pretty good with a game like Sea of Thieves. You pay for the base game, and then the game still has a lot of content, there's a lot of story, there's a lot of exploration there. There's even new seasons that come out that you don't even have to pay for. You know, they're free, basically, if you already own the game. And then if you want to buy extra things for your ship or for your gear or buy a pet, you can pay for actual microtransactions, transactions that are small. Instead, we can look at Diablo 4 and it's like the armor sets can be up to $30. And we know too, even with NBA 2K24, I mean, we're looking at $150 for the super fancy anniversary edition. For what? And to still pay for a battle pass on top of it? Or like reintroducing Black Cell, which was frustratingly horrible, and also the blueprint system from Vanguard, Call of Duty Vanguard. I'm not excited with what Sledgehammer Games is going to do with Modern Warfare 3. Some buddies and I were even talking about it last night. So what can we kind of glean from this? It's literally impossible to continue to make content better. Because otherwise you get a Witch Queen, and then your expectations aren't met with Lightfall. Because it can't be perfect. It can't match it or be better because it's basically more cost, it's more labor intensive, there's more creativity, and it just takes too much time. Seasons need time, story and development. It needs time to build all of that stuff, and 3 or 4 months is too short. And so what they figured out is, hey, we can just give you digital collectibles that you can shove in a walk-in closet. I mean, why not? It keeps giving you content to grind for, and you still get to play the game, so you have fun with that. And yeah, sure, I still play Modern Warfare 2. I enjoy it for what it is. But I'm not buying the battle pass. I'm not buying the skins. I'm not buying stuff to look cool or I mean because again folks, it's a digital closet full of stuff. You're never going to wear 99% of it or even 100% of it depending on the game. You won't be able to transfer anything over and then you're just going to be buying and grinding all of this stuff again. I mean, think of all of the content that people have paid for in Destiny 2 or Destiny 1 and now they're quitting. I mean, that is a decade of stuff. And think, too, of all of the regrinding you've done for guns and skins and titles and calling cards and whatever else in Call of Duty. You're just grinding the same stuff. And at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. It's just stuff for you to chase after. And this gets to the fourth cog that wasn't actually in Bungie's presentation, and I think it should be. And it's the fact that they know that if you invest enough money and time, you're going to want to continue to play. So we've seen this with different games too. Maybe they changed something, maybe they tweaked stuff, and Destiny 2 is a great example of this. Because they really started heavily monetizing several years ago, and it's even gotten worse ever since Sony now owns them. And so we're getting to this point where it's like, okay, if we can get them to just accumulate stuff, that in and of itself shows the amount of value or investment they've put into the game. And they're going to want to keep that, or they're going to want to keep going with it, or whatever, especially if it's a long type of service just like Destiny 2 was. And I really think that's how they're getting people, and that's why, too, this is important to talk about, because if you don't have the discipline to say no, you're going to waste a lot of money. And you're going to waste, too, a lot of time. And you should really see money and time as a way, as a thing to invest, not just use. And so some of the live service that's been really good, there's really not too many. I would say Back 4 Blood was actually pretty good. Again, the gameplay isn't great, but I mean, we got 3 DLCs with the game. There was other content too, if you wanted to. Sea of Thieves was another one, which still runs today. And Rare is enjoying making their game and leaving it open to the public. We also have non-live service games, like Elden Ring and like Baldur's Gate 3 or God of War or Ghost Recon Wildlands, which was 2017, the old Halo games, World at War, the Borderlands series, and old sports games or racing games where you actually just worked for stuff in the game. Nothing was behind a paywall. And even with games like GTA 5 that still have a story, they haven't expanded really on GTA 5 in a really long time. They've just made it a multiplayer service game. And they've kept it going for 10 years. Isn't that wild? And so I just really want to bring this to people's attention because this also means, again, they can't continue to make content better. They just give you more stuff to chase and give you more things to grind for, which really is worthless in the end anyway. Because you can't do anything with it. You can't wear it. You can't transfer it to the next game. Sometimes even like Bungie, they will take it out of the game. Or like Rockstar took hundreds of cars out of GTA 5 and put them behind a paywall. Just because they can. Because they need to continue to get revenue. And I'm sure we'll see this with other games too. But yet it's impossible to keep their content improved or keep to a good high standard of actual quality content. And the consistency is more important than meeting the expectations. So if they keep the expectations low, people will keep buying. If they get you to continue to buy and work toward investing in all of this random stuff, well, they'll keep you retained too. Because again, you don't want to quit. It's like a bad relationship you just can't get out of. It's just like, man, I've already spent 3 years in this person, and it's like, I don't want to quit, but I'm not really happy. Do some of you guys feel like that? Leave a comment down below with the gaming industry. What game have you probably invested in too much? Go ahead and share. And so, too, this also is an issue because do these companies purposefully leave amazing things out of games now? The old memories that I have are exactly that. They're old and they're really good, like Shadow of the Colossus or the old God of War games, even the current ones, the Dark Souls series, the Ace Combat, Armored Cores, even before Armored Core 6 came out, Myst and Riven and Uru, made by Cheyenne. I mean, I really enjoyed these games, and every game now that's live service, it can't really score that high. And so let me break this down a little bit more. So we've already talked about some games that are good. We've already talked about why we've really enjoyed good games. And it's because, again, the content is just lackluster, and they purposefully keep it that way. And so live service eventually is going to die out. And then they got to make something else. This is why I think Bungie is now focusing on Marathon. But if they can keep it going long term, there's more money to be made than a non-live service. And I think that's why these companies keep trying. Also, the delivery has to be perfect for these chains of seasons and DLCs and microtransactions to be able to retain players, to keep the trust there enough, and to keep you spending money. And also, I think the scores for live service, they speak for themselves. Most of the time, these games can't get a 3.0 out of 5. Diablo 4, Overwatch 2, all of the Call of Duties, until you go back far enough. But it's like these games can't make enough. They can't do good enough. And again, it's just swallowed over by microtransactions. And it's so frustrating. And see, they're more focused on selling you a service instead of actually selling you a product. And I think that's the thing that we really need to take away. I mean, yeah, some of the wonderful games that have scored really high are like the old Star Wars Battlefronts. We've also had Elden Ring and God of War and the older Battlefields, Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, Starfield, Baldur's Gate 3, Armored Core 6, Final Fantasy 16. Even Cyberpunk, with as horrible as a launch as it's had, and we finally got its first update after 3 years. But I mean, the gaming industry is so polarized. And folks, you gotta vote with your money. You gotta vote for the type of industry that you want, even if that means withholding some, satisfaction and pleasure a little bit. Vote for a better gaming industry tomorrow. And now is the time, too, with recession to really do that. Because, yeah, the companies are hurting, and we can tighten the bolts down a little harder with recession. Also, too, with a final thought is these companies, they put their best foot forward, and then over time the content becomes weaker, less important, more grindy, and also more expensive. And they just keep you in this cycle of just retaining you, getting you to collect things, and then you spending money. Because again, it's all about keeping the flow of content consistent. And this is why many, including myself, really hate microtransactions. Because we know deep down that it's a scam. If we take Madden 24, for example, we know that they don't really change anything. People that love sports, people that have played these games forever, they don't really see changes. They don't see improvements. And it's kind of like Windows as an operating system. Instead of fixing the bugs, they just fix it with the next iteration of their operating system. And Microsoft is well known for that with their operating systems for computers. And we see that in the gaming space. If the game comes out every year, guess what? They're not changing and tweaking a whole bunch of stuff. They're keeping the skeleton the same, and then they're just putting different skins on it. But still, the structural integrity of the game is still exactly the same. The animations don't click together. There's frame drop rate issues. There's issues with running the client. There's server problems. But hey, the store always works perfect. And live service just is not in the gaming industry. It's in other industries too. And so there's apps to get deals at stores. There's logins for pretty much everything, so they can track stuff and send you emails or texts or whatever, or even get more, kind of fish for more contacts. There's even cars now where you have to pay a subscription to have your heated seats. This isn't just a Tesla thing anymore. This is spreading to other manufacturers. There's also insurance plans. There's also reward programs. There's car warranties. It's all kind of a way to get you to spend money without really giving you anything. And I want you guys to think about this. I mean, I already know as a gamer, I'm 33 years old, I have spent thousands of dollars on content over the course of my gaming life where I feel like I ultimately wasted that money. Because it sits there, and as soon as the game is delisted, it's all gone anyway. As soon as the servers are shut down, it's over. And this is another issue that maybe I'll talk about later with every live service game being a multiplayer game. And how they're linked. And see, they keep a multiplayer so that you just move to the next one. Because everybody's going to move to the next one, right? Wrong. Not everyone does. And so there's ways to save money, folks. There's ways to stick it to these publishers like Ubisoft, Square Enix, EA, Activision Blizzard. We know we're getting screwed. And so some of you already are. That's why you're a part of this channel. But I mean, stand with me. And, you know, I'm not calling for full boycotts. But what I'm calling for is to withhold money from these companies. Wait until the game's on sale. Or buy the next iteration. Or keep playing the old one. Don't buy the DLC content. Just buy the content that actually provides value for the game. Don't have a huge walk-in closet full of digital stuff you're never going to use, folks. Just earn the stuff you can in the game. And I think some, too, they just don't necessarily see what's happening. But that's also why we have this channel. This is also why we talk about the state of gaming. Which there's other states of gaming videos in a playlist, folks. You can find that on YouTube. Gaming Garbage 22. See, I want you guys to think about this. And you know, how have you gotten screwed? Because, man, there's a bunch of us now out there. And it's pretty hard to hide exactly what's going on. And that the quality just isn't as good. So thanks for tuning in, folks. Of course, you can find me over at Twitch. I don't necessarily watch my chat all the time. I just basically use it to stream for free so I can get it on YouTube. But if you want to, you can follow me on Twitch at at Don't Tread on Thee. You can also find me over at YouTube where I archive everything at Gaming Garbage 22. And we got everything from playlists to co-op stuff to gaming news, state of gaming. Yeah, we talk about stuff and we play stuff. So we hope to see you over there. So stay safe, folks. Be aware of what's going on. And, boy, too, if you're having a struggle, if you're having a tough time, just hang in there. You can rest right here at the channel if you wish to. And I'll see you on the next one.